In the conventional tarot, he is the sun god. And well, there's a picture of him, if you want to just pass it over, I'll hold it up. This is a traditional image, him riding a horse as a child. He's a sort of young god, because he represents a life force. The spring-like energies when the sun comes back. He's riding a llama here, with the sun behind him, and holding fruits to represent the fertility of life. He had another name in Quechua, Apu Punchao, meaning leader of the daytime. He's the sun that wakes us up in the morning and inspires us to get on. His father, Viracocha, was the creator of all things, so the Lord of infinite space, time, everything. But he creates the sun, who's our particular, beneficent deity. So the Inca ruler, the Sapa Inca, claimed divine heritage as a direct descendant of the sun god, Inti. So, and they regarded gold as coming from the sun. I mean, gold was sacred because it was beautiful and it didn't decay and rust, and so it was used in jewellery and special things, but it wasn't material wealth, it was the wealth of the sun. There's a wonderful play written by an English playwright called The Royal Hunt of the Sun about the conquest of the Incan people. And the ruler, one of the best lines of any play ever, after the conquistadors had broken all their promises and kept breaking their word and killing people, they tried to do another deal. They said, no, we'll promise we'll do this, that and the other. And the ruler turned around and said to them, you have no more word to give. It's like, they'd already blown it with what they'd said. I think that's a chilling kind of judgment on European civilization by Ma'at, if you want. We have to find some more word to give. The Druids, of course, worship the sun at Stonehenge and still do. So anyway, there's a good sign, I think. Thank you for drawing Inti. And he was important also to the Mayan people. They also worship the sun. And interestingly, I give some figures about the sun. I've said this before, but it's worth repeating. I learned in a National Geographic documentary on the sun years ago when I was living in Wales that every photon that comes from the sun to Earth is what powers our entire food chain. It's what makes photosynthesis happen. The plants, the trees, absorb photons through a complicated thing called photosynthesis. They convert it into sugars and starches, which we then eat as plants, as tomatoes, as whatever. Or smoke as tobacco. It's the essence of what we do as humans, right? But we wouldn't be here without the photons coming. And every bit of energy that I'm using to speak comes from photons, ultimately. Now, where do these photons come from? So I wondered, and I researched it, and obviously they come from the sun, but they're created inside the sun when two hydrogen atoms fuse and create helium. And then they release this vast amount of energy, according to nuclear physics, in the form of photons. But it takes tens of thousands, some say hundreds of thousands of years, for the photons created in the heart of the sun to reach the surface of the sun. Because the sun is a vast thing full of swirling plasma and hot gases and things. And these little photons that have just been created, they take tens of thousands of years to swirl around and get to the edge of the sun. And then it takes them 6 minutes to get to Earth, after having spent tens of thousands of years inside the sun. And I'm in awe of this fact. So every time I eat or absorb photons, I give thanks to that process of these incredible photons being created and then coming to the Earth at 186,000 miles per second. It takes each photon 8 minutes and 20 seconds to travel out of the sun's edge, but it takes them tens of thousands of years to get to the edge. So, in my book, Philosophiae Religionis Principia Mathematica, 3 volumes, I set a mathematical puzzle to students. How many photons are there in the universe? Because if you work out how many stars there are, there's 3.846 times 1 with a lot of zeros after it. It's in the book. How many photons in total? I mean, it's vast. Anyway, that's the sort of thing I was doing in the Principles of Religious Mathematics work. Of course, a bright student might say, well, there's only one, because they're all interconnected. And at the level of divine mind, maybe they are. That's a subject for another day.
Which universe are we talking about?
Good point, yes. Okay, then we got another one, super important card. We've got number 1, which is the magician in the tarot, Izanagi, the Japanese creator god. So we shouldn't forget, of course, the Japanese love the sun. He's on their national flag. And they worship, Amaterasu, the sun goddess, in fact, because the sun is feminine in Japan. But Izanagi is the creator of this world system, which he creates through magic. We're here because of magic, which I think is pretty cool. And if you read the Shinto scriptures, as I've done, the Kojiki and so on, they describe how Izanagi creates the universe. And of course he creates Japan the first. That was the first place he made. And that reminds me of the fact that, say, every American Indian tribe thinks it's the first created tribe. The Hopi, the Cheyenne, the Sioux, they're all the first people. And every tribe thinks that. But I think now we can safely say that Izanagi created all the peoples of the world first. But so, yes, fascinating. We have to take the problems, I think, to the Creator. That was my point about an interfaith peace treaty in the Middle East. And the Japanese could pioneer this. They're distant, they don't have, sort of skin in the game, to use that phrase. They could help pioneer my interfaith peace treaty through their diplomacy around the world, because they know what it's like to get nuclear bombs dropped on them. They don't want that for the rest of the world. So, Japanese, if you're hearing me, please talk to your Shinto priests of Izanagi and sign the Interfaith Peace Treaty and give me a ring. And let's pull off some miracles here.
The land of the rising sun.
Sorry?
The land of the rising sun.
Correct. And Europe, interesting enough, is the land of the setting sun. Because Europa, it is thought, has a meaning of the setting sun. Like Erebus. And, which is why Britain was called the land of the dead in the classical world, because it's cold, dark, things go there to die, sort of thing, after the sun sets. But the sun set's beautiful. Right, so my one is the Queen of the Air, the element of air, which is pretty awesome. And everything comes from air. Even the sun can't exist without air. And it needs air in which to shine. And the Queen of the Air is this amazing deity called Eon. And Eon is an important deity, sort of used in late Hellenistic intellectual circles as a symbol of eternity. And we've got these sculptures that have come down all over the Hellenistic and Roman worlds. Eon represents the eternity of time. And what is time for? It's a cycle, it's a process. Why are we alive? Is to celebrate that process, celebrate that life from conception, birth, youth, maturity, aging and death. And then it comes round again. It's an eternal cycle. So I think Aeon, and Jung studied Aeon because he loved the imagery, the rich imagery of late Hellenism. And we know that in Alexandria, Aeon was studied and worshipped by intellectuals. There was a chap called Horapollo, which was a name combining Horus with Apollo, who wrote about Aeon. And also so did Martianus Capella, a 5th century astrologer, because astrologers believe that time comes in qualitative cycles. It's not just a physical thing that physics can study. Time has meaning, which comes in cycles of qualitative change. Quite how it happens, you'd have to ask Aeon, the details of that. But it seems there's a sort of psychological process at work in the physical manifestations of the universe. If you think about it, even suns have their birth, life, death cycle. My friend Rupert Sheldrake is convinced the sun is conscious. I love Rupert. He's a great man. Well done, Rupert. He's got this whole theory that the sun is a thinking being and conscious. And there's some lectures of his on YouTube. I do know that if I go out and do some prayers to the sun, often the sun will appear even on a cloudy day. It's as if he can pick up on our thoughts, which is very interesting. And that's kind of what Rupert is saying. So in the Gnostic tradition, Aeon was important as well. And in fact, the eons, it was pluralized, were the kind of creator energies that create our world as we know it. And they come in polar opposites, primaries, syzygies, Syzygies, like male and female. There are different polarities, male, female, that create our world in this dialectical form. So we had a couple of weeks ago, we had our friend from Finland talking about sacred materialism. That was a lovely phrase she coined for us. I think we should have sacred dialectical materialism. Because at the heart of matter is a dialectical process, which is obviously sacred, and the sun is part of that. But it's a dialectical process. It comes in polarities that work together, like a battery, or the human form, the animal life cycles. So let's revisit dialectical materialism, but add in the sacred element. Because when I went to Russia and talked to their philosophers, they were just starting to do that in the late 1990s when I was there, early 1990s. And Aeon might help with that work. So that would be the sort of interface of physics and metaphysics. Yes, so anyway, let's thank you so much for the gods that have come. Any questions or comments on our Trinity today?
No, not really. Not really today.
Just a little postscript. The word ion in physics is important. It's any atom or group of atoms that bear one or more positive or negative electrical charges. That's an ion. It comes from a root meaning going. So there's a sort of goingness behind the universe. Everything's moving around at very fast speeds. That's Aeon doing all this magic display, which creates the illusion of time and space and energy and light. What's it coming from? Well, Aristotle would say it's the unmoved divine mind that's at the centre of it all. He called it the unmoved mover. So underlying all the movement is emptiness, the void, shunyata, which is the divine consciousness field in which everything's happening. And that's what you reach in deep meditation or prayer, I think. That's what Christians and others mean by God. It's the energy field which allows energy to flourish in. And that's why we should be all in love with the fruits of Aeon and not seeking to destroy and kill each other. You know, that's why there's a peace philosophy underlying all this stuff. It seems to be. Because underlying relativity theory, there's got to be something to which everything is relative. That's Aeon. You know. So anyway, I think this is all great stuff. And if you want the details, please read the book. You know, get the tarot, get your own set. Yes. Okay, we'll finish there. Thank you so much, and have a great week, everyone.